Hey, what's up, guys? You're now listening to Devo with Uncle Theo. Today is day 108. We're going to cover 2 Samuel chapter 19 and 20. Last time we left off, Joab, David's commander-in-chief, had killed his son Absalom, and David was lamenting. And we're going to enter chapter 19 with that lament. It starts in verse 1 saying, "Then it was told to Joab, Behold, the king is weeping and mourns for Absalom. The victory that day was turned into mourning for all the people. For the people heard it and said that day, the king is grieved for his son." And so David is grieving so much that Joab has to come to him and say to him that your people are starting to get concerned. The way that you're grieving for your son, it seems like you don't even care that they just won a battle for you. And this is in verse 5. It says, Then Joab came into the house to the king and said, Today you have covered with shame the faces of all your servants, who today have saved your life and the lives of your sons and daughters, the lives of your wives and the lives of your concubines, but loving those who hate you by hating those who love you. For you have shown today that princes and servants are nothing to you. For I know this day that if Absalom were alive and all of us were dead today, you would be pleased. And so you just see the immense power that Joab has. He says, look, now go out and make this right. Speak kindly to your servants. And David is aware of this. He does this, and he's restored as king. In verse 8 and following, it says, He arose and sat in the gate. And when they told all the people, saying, Behold, the king is sitting in the gate, then all the people came before the king. And so there's a debate on whether they are going to receive David. But the logic is we have to receive him because, one, he saved us from the Philistines, and two, he fled from Absalom, and Absalom did not succeed. So they say, why are we silent about bringing the king back? And so David gets involved. He sends Zadok and Abiathar the priest saying, Speak to the elders of Judah saying, Why are you the last to bring the king back to his house? You are my brothers, you are my bone and my flesh. Why then should you be the last to bring about the king? And so the priests make this argument that David should be king. Verse 14, it says, Does he return the hearts of all the men of Judah as one man? So that they sent word to the king saying, Return, you and all your servants. The king then returned and came as far as the Jordan. And Judah came to Gilgal in order to go and meet the king and to bring the king across the Jordan. And so they installs him back. And now all of the people who gave him problems are now repenting and trying to make it right with David. You remember Shimei who cursed him? And he said at the time, look, let him curse me. Maybe God will have favor on me. He comes back. He says to the king, Let not my Lord consider me guilty, nor remember what your servant did wrong on the day when my Lord the king came out from Jerusalem, so that the king would take it to heart. For your servant knows that he's sinned. And David gives him mercy. He says, Look, should a man be put to death in Israel today? For do I not know that I am king over Israel today? The king said to Shimei, You shall not die. And the king swore to him. Now Mephibosheth comes up. In verse 24, it says, He had neither cared for his feet, nor trimmed his mustache, nor washed his clothes from the day the king departed until the day he came home in peace. And so David says to Mephibosheth, Why didn't you go with me when I was on the run? And listen to Mephibosheth's answer. He says, O my Lord, the king, my servant, deceived me. For your servant said, I will saddle a donkey for myself, that I may ride on it and go with the king, because your servant is lame. Moreover, he has slandered your servant to my lord the king. But my lord the king is like the angel of God. Therefore, do what is good in your sight. For all my father's household was nothing but dead men before my lord the king. Yet you set your servant among those who ate at your own table. What do I have yet that I should complain any more to the king? So the king said to him, Why do you still speak of your affairs? I have decided you and Ziba shall divide the land. Now remember, when we read before, he thought Mephibosheth had betrayed him, and he gave Ziba all the land. And now Mephibosheth is showing the deception of Ziba, and he's saying that they could divide it, which honestly, Mephibosheth should get all of the land because Ziba is the one that betrayed him. But I want you to hear Mephibosheth's answer. This is more important than David's unwise decision. Listen to this. Mephibosheth said to the king, "Let him even take it all, since my lord the king has come safely to his house." And to me, this is the perfect illustration of humility and the sufficiency of Christ. Mephibosheth was promoted by David. David brought him into his house. He was framed by his own servant and made to look like a traitor, but he wasn't. And when he clears his name, he didn't try to capitalize on anything. He didn't try to get a lot of positions or get any blessings. He says, "It is enough to have you home. I'm so thankful to have you. You're enough." If this isn't the most beautiful illustration of the sufficiency of Christ, I don't know what is. This should be our disposition every day. When we wake up in the morning, listen, you know the song, "You can have all this world, but give me Jesus." And that's what Mephibosheth is saying. Look, I don't care about the land. I just want you. And that's how we should feel about Christ. We may not get the house we want or the car we want, the children we want, the marriage we want, the promotion we want, the health that we want, the stress-free life that we want. But at the end of the day, is Jesus enough? Christ must be sufficient. Jesus must be enough. We must wake up every morning fighting the world and everything tugging on us and telling everyone else, "Look, you can have all of this world, but give me Jesus." That's where we all should land. Then he meets another guy by the name of Barzillai, and he was a very old man, verse 32, 80 years old. And David says, "Look, come with me. I'll sustain you for the rest of your life." And he says, "Look, I'm older now. Let me stay in my house, but take my servant with you, Chimham." And David said, "Very well, I'll do this." And so that's how this chapter ends. Basically, David getting the kingdom restored to him and dealing with all of the conflicts that arise while he was on the run. The people who betrayed him, making it right with them. The people who were slandered, like Mephibosheth, making it right with them. And remember, David just doesn't have that unity that he once had before. You see it here in verse 41. "And behold, all the men of Israel came to the king and said to the king, Why have our brothers, the men of Judah, stolen you away and brought the king and his household and all David's men with him over the Jordan?" Then all the men of Judah answered the men of Israel, "Because the king is a close relative to us. Why then are you angry about this matter? Have we eaten at all at the king's expense, or has anything been taken from us?" But the men of Israel answered the men of Judah and said, "We have 10 parts in the king, therefore also have more claim on David than you. Why then did you treat us with contempt? Was it not our advice first to bring back our king?" Yet the words of the men of Judah were harsher than the words of the men of Israel. And so you see, even though David is getting the kingdom back, there's just still strife here. It's not the same. Even look as we go into chapter 20. "Now a worthless fellow happened to be there whose name was Sheba, the son of Bichri, a Benjaminite, and he blew the trumpet and said, We have no portion in David, nor do we have inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to his tents, O Israel." So all the men of Israel withdrew from following David and followed Sheba. You see that? Division. But the men of Judah remained steadfast to the king from the Jordan even to Israel. So now we have Sheba's revolt. He's revolting now. This guy just rises up out of nowhere. We don't even know much about this guy, but he has a lot of influence. And he's able to incite the people of Israel against David. And so in the midst of this, in verse 3, David came to his house. Remember the 10 concubines we talked about that Absalom had, that Ahithophel told him to go into, to usurp, to prove his rights to the throne? They come back up here in verse 3. "Then David came to his house at Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 women, the concubines whom he had left to keep the house, and placed them under guard, and provided them with sustenance, but he did not go into them. So they were shut up until the day of their death, living as widows." And so David appoints another general, Amasa. He said that he would appoint him. He was Absalom's general, and David had promised that he would appoint him as commander. So he's installed, and obviously This is a chess move by David as well, because this was Absalom's general, and David installing him, he was thinking that this appointment would help him rally the people better. But Amasa doesn't listen to his counsel. He doesn't do what he said. David tells Amasa to go out for 3 days and present yourself, but he delays and he doesn't come back at the appointed time. So David sends Abishai, and Joab goes with them. And you know if Joab is with him, what's going to happen? Somebody's about to die. And so Joab goes, he grabs him by the beard, he kisses him, and then he stabs him in the belly and kills him. Verse 10, now they go after Sheba. So Joab kills David's general. David's army watches him, and Joab says, look, follow me, let's go get Sheba. And they follow him. They don't rebel or anything. This is just showing you that David is losing his power more and more, and how much power Joab has over the army. They see him murder this guy, but yet they still follow him. Even the appointment of Abishai, Joab's brother doesn't stick because of Joab's influence. And so they go down and they hunt Sheba down. He's in a city, and they're trying to get in there to him. And they say, look, we come for Sheba. Hand him over. This is verse 21. Hand him over and we'll depart from the city. And a woman said to Joab, behold, his head will be thrown to you over the wall. The woman wisely came to all the people, and they cut off the head of Sheba and threw it to Joab. So he blew the trumpet, and they were dispersed from the city, each to his tent. Joab also returned to the king of Jerusalem. Now Joab was over the whole army. And you get a summary of the rest of David's team. He's back in command. And that's how our chapter ends. And it's funny because he's back, but there's still division. Joab is doing what he wants, and people are listening to him. David has Judah and kind of has Israel. And so this has us on pins and needles on what's about to happen to the kingdom. This prophecy of kings coming from Abraham, them coming into a great nation. You're seeing it now. They got a king. This all flowed from Genesis. But now we're starting to see division. And so will the Abrahamic covenant hold true? We know it's wrapped up in the Davidic covenant now, but let's see what's about to happen, and let's see where the seed goes next. All of those things will develop within a few chapters as we finish up 2 Samuel and we walk into 1 Kings. Enjoying it. You guys take care and catch you tomorrow.